Yeah. Namaste, everyone. It's 6:35, so the session for today. I'm pleased to welcome all of you on this day 3 of the 10-day IKS certificate course, Pathways and Trajectories. Over the past 2 days, we have had very interesting and enlightening sessions around IKS. And just to brief Abhinav ji, our speaker for today, for what we have covered in the past 2 sessions. So we started the course with Dr. Rachna Sharma madam's lecture on Niti Shastra and how it provides a valuable framework for good governance and value anchoring in the Indic context. And in yesterday's session, we had Dr. Deepti Acharya madam talking about decoding and trying to get a sense of different political concepts from an Indic lens. And in her session, madam focused on Ramayana and Mahabharata as knowledge repositories in the Bharatiya context, to talk about how we need to shift our lens, how we need to alter our understanding if we have to understand and explore and decolonize our own sense of major our popular political ideas that we prominently see around us. So in that line today, we are pleased to welcome our expert speaker for the day, Shri Abhinav Kadambi ji. Abhinav ji, namaste and welcome to the session, and thank you for accepting and honoring our invite to be a part of this certificate course. I will introduce Abhinav ji briefly because he has shared a brief introduction with me. And when I asked him to share a detailed introduction, because I really like that our participants should get to know details of the work that the expert has done. So Abhinav ji was very, very humble, and he said that after he had attended the Shastra Sabha in Tenali, and I think Dr. Vikas was a co-participant. So he said that after he observed the Shastra Sabha and Shastra Pariksha, he realized how little he knows compared to the other scholars and students. So he has not shared a very detailed introduction, so I will just go with the introduction that he has shared with me. Shri Abhinav Kadambi is a trained engineer with an academic research background in medical nanotechnology, that is an MTech degree, and cognitive neurosciences. I must say that this is a very interesting background, study background that you have. And of course, we would like to know how you made this shift from this background to Indian knowledge systems. He is a traditional student of Yoga Shastra and Nyaya Shastra. Currently, he is an academic teacher and researcher in Indian knowledge systems, and he's also pursuing his PhD in Sanskrit under the supervision of Dr. O.R. Devanathan ji. So that's a very formal introduction, but I would just like to share with all the participants that on this platform, it is highly encouraging, motivating, and commendable to see a young, bright, talented scholar like Abhinav ji, and I know that all 3 epithets fit him very well. We would definitely, once he's done with his presentation, talk about his PhD topic, his transition from engineering to IKS, and what has been his experience at the Shastra Sabha I'll also invite later on my esteemed colleague, Dr. Vikas Raj Popat, to delve on his experience at the Shastra Sabha. For today, Abhinav ji is going to speak on the topic from chaos to clarity, insights on the mind from Patanjali's Yogasūtras. What caught my attention in this title was the first part of the title, from chaos to clarity. And I truly believe, as somebody who's explored IKS very recently, that our own knowledge systems, our own knowledge traditions do lead us from chaos to clarity. And yesterday, as Dr. Deepti ma'am rightly said, when we start exploring our own knowledge systems, it takes us towards simple living, high thinking. Simplicity is probably the essence of IKS, even though layered and deep and subtle. And before I hand over the floor to Abhinav ji, I have with me this wonderful book, which I would like to recommend to everyone here. The Idea of India, Bharat as a Civilization by Professor Subhash Kak. Professor Kak is a professor of physics and engineering, I suppose, based in the US, but he has written widely on Indian knowledge systems. And this is a 20-chapter book, quite an interesting and engaging read for anybody who is wanting to explore Indian knowledge systems. And the chapter 5 in this book is Light on Yoga. And I would just like to read a couple of um, sentences. Yes, I will share all the details once Abhinavji starts, but I think since today's session is on Yoga Sutra, I thought it pertinent that we look at what Professor Kak is writing on mind and yoga in this very important work, and highly recommended, as I said. He says, and I quote, "The word yoga means union of the mind and one's consciousness, which is the self. To obtain mastery of yoga, one needs an immersion in the Ved. The two are a complementary pair, and once the insight deepens, it is realized they are more than a pair of exclusive categories, and one transforms into the other, Ved and Yoga. The practice of yoga is to learn to bridge these dualities in one's experience, and by doing so, obtain self knowledge. I think the ultimate purpose of IKS is to know oneself. At yoga's end are answers about the meaning of not just one's own life, but the larger mystery of reality. This possibility of this knowledge goes to the very heart of the difference between yoga and Western approaches to the mind. Within the Indian tradition, scholars and masters are emphatic that the West doesn't quite get what yoga has to offer, and therefore, as Professor Kak concludes in this section, that yogic practices include asana, pranayam, pratyahar, dharana, dhyan, and samadhi. So I'm not going into the details. You can check this book and read this chapter for yourself. But he quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga is skill in action. Yoga is a path of mastery in all fields. It is not merely about contemplation, but excellence in dealing with the daily challenges of life. I now invite Abhinavji to take us ahead through this journey of the Yoga Sutra. Thank you.
May I start, Ji?
Sure,
Yeah.
Abhinav ji, please start. So I am monitoring the chat box, and anywhere you feel you need my help to navigate, I am there.
योगेन चित्तस्य पदेन वाचाम् मलं शरीरस्य च वैद्यकेन योपाकरोत्तं प्रवरं मुनीनाम् पतञ्जलिं प्राञ्जलिरानतोऽस्मि. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. This is a very interesting opportunity for everyone to get acquainted with the theory and the practice of yoga right after the International Yoga Day has happened. So many of us usually get exposed to yoga from the perspective of the physical practices. So you may have attended a yoga class, or someone in your family or friend circle may have attended a yoga course, and they probably told you the importance of the Surya Namaskara, or they told you how some Kriya or some Pranayama was very useful for them, and probably they were also recommending that you do the same. And it is entirely likely that you tried attending, and perhaps because the classes were early in the morning, you could not wake up on time, so you could not do it. But the thing is, the concept of yoga and the practice of yoga are ingrained, embedded within the cultural practices of Bharata. So, pardon me if I'm using pronunciations which are more common to the Dakshina part of the country. In the Uttara part of the country, you probably stop pronouncing the last A vowel at the end of the word. We are from the Dakshina part of the country, so in the place where I live and where I grew up, where I'm still staying, the pronunciation is like this. So please excuse me if I am unable to convey everything with the Uttara Bharatiya pronunciation. So once you know what word I'm saying, please translate it to your local variety of pronunciation in your own mind. So this concept of yoga is so embedded within all the cultural practices of the Bharatiya civilization, such that almost every activity that you do can be combined with the robust theory of yoga. So it has also been mentioned in the texts of yoga as well as by great people such as Swami Vivekananda about how just by doing what is relevant to you wholeheartedly, not just wholeheartedly, one-pointedly, meaning with full attention, that itself is yoga. This is not something that is new to each and every one of us. Perhaps you have been experiencing that kind of yoga, or that stage of yoga where your one-pointed attention is fully present in the context of scrolling through the reels on Instagram or YouTube. You are totally dissolved in it, right? You are totally lost in it. And that is the time when you realize that time has gone very quickly. So when you are engaged in some activity and time goes without your noticing, that means that you are totally dissolved in it. You are totally submerged in it. You are losing a sense of outside activity or outside disturbances. It is only when we come out of this engaging activity that we remember that we have lost time, that we had some appointment with somebody, that we have to go to purchase something outside, that our stomach is growling with hunger. All these things we'll remember only when we come out of this activity where we have given so much of attention. Before we enter into the subject of the presentation, we must remember that there are only two types of currencies that we all have. Everybody thinks that we have money, which is directly in the form of paper or metal. Then you can say that we have money, which is in the form of digital currencies. You might even say Bitcoin. You might show this plastic card, Visa, Rupee, all this you might show and say so many currencies are there. You might even say rupee is one type of currency. We have USD, we have ruble, something like that. You might say that these are all currencies. But in the context of the Bharatiya civilization, practically speaking, we have only two types of currencies. One currency is called time. The second currency is called attention. You can either pay for something using your time or your attention. Either of these you cannot get back. If you lose some money, in terms of, say, you spent some money buying a bel puri or pani puri which you did not like the taste of, later you can earn that money through some activity and again you can buy something better somewhere else. But when it comes to time and attention, it can never be gotten back. Once your time is lost, it is lost as it is. Attention to an extent can be brought back. Fortunately or unfortunately, the mind is extremely plastic in nature. Plastic meaning it can somewhat deform to suit the needs of the individual. So if I want to be extremely focused, I can be extremely focused. If I want to be distracted, I can be distracted. So that is the nature of the mind. It can easily take the shape of the object in front of us. If you look at the different types of things which demand our attention on a day-to-day basis, you will realize that sometimes it feels as if it is only chaotic outside. It seems as if I am doing something, but it is not that I am doing something, it is doing me, something like that. We feel this kind of chaos so much so that sometimes at the end of the day, we don't know if we did anything. Sometimes we don't even remember what happened the entire day. So without realizing, we are all prone to a chronic sense of fatigue or a chronic sense of confusion, some kind of depression, anxiety, or any other typical disorder that you generally associate with the psychiatric ward is being experienced by each and every one of us on a day-to-day basis, and we don't even know that we are experiencing it. So think about this. Once you go to office or any kind of work, say in the morning, I work in a 9 to 5 job at an office. The moment I sign or the moment I show my card or my fingerprint and enter into office, am I able to switch to the office mode immediately? Many of you might nod as if you are really that productive, probably because your supervisor or some superior in the hierarchy sitting next to you are observing you right now. But in reality, many of us actually are unable to switch over to the other activity, the official activity. What happens is we sit down, maybe half an hour we are sitting at work, immediately we are bored, 5 minutes we need to go for a walk, or I have to see some reel on my YouTube account, or perhaps I just have to go have some smoke and come back, or I just have to have a candy. I'm totally bored, I'm totally tired, I'm not able to do anything. Every day when I wake up, I feel as if I am actually experiencing hell every day. So these are very common experiences. All of this is because of the fact that the mind, or what we call the mind, the mental faculty, is totally disorganized and disorderly. This is majorly because of certain habits that we have inculcated when we were children, because of situational circumstances where in our family they have not let us feel safe, or perhaps they gave us anxiety or they gave us depression, something. We really do not know what the cause could be. But oftentimes this is the case where we are not happy with the state of things as we experience every day. What happens is when we are done with office, and say we are experiencing a summer vacation. When we go on a holiday somewhere, still after going there, we do not feel happy. Many of us, when we go on a holiday to a far off holiday location, we still have certain stresses, we still become angry, we still are sad, we still experience negative emotions. Why is that? Because of the fact that we have never truly understood ourselves or truly understood how we function. We keep experiencing these cycles of ups and downs. In reality, when you are totally focused, there is no up or down. You are just there. You obviously know this. When you did what you love, say for example, when you played football, or when you were trying to wear makeup, or perhaps when you were listening to your favorite song, or maybe when you were cleaning your room, you experienced some kind of absolute calmness. What is this calmness? This calmness comes because you have your time and attention fully in the same place, completely absorbed in this activity. So this is clarity. So I know exactly what's happening in front of me. I know exactly what is happening inside me because I'm thinking clearly. Everything falls into place. So you might have certain words for it. You might say, that is my ikigai. You might say that that is what is relevant for me. You might call it dharma, whatever it is. You might call it anything. But in reality, that is possible. That understanding is possible only when we are at a state of clarity. When you are experiencing chaos of any kind, you cannot experience clarity. Of course, I am not going to give you all advanced, jam-packed lessons in just one session. This is only meant to give you an introduction to how the Yoga Sutras of Maharishi Patanjali uh, can be used for understanding our minds better. So I will start presenting now. Patanjali Maharshi is one of the most ancient seers or ancient psychologists or psychiatrists, you can call him whatever you wish to. He's probably a mind scientist who tried to codify a lot of these lessons and present it in the form of less than 200 sentences. So approximately 195 or 196 sentences exist. That is all is the scope of the entire text of Yoga Sutras. That's all. This text is so short that people think that there is nothing there. But in reality, when you take the text and start studying it, you will realize that each line, even though it is having less than 5 or 6 words, sometimes there are only 2 words inside one sentence. For example, the sutra, that is the definition of yoga given in one of the sentences in the Yoga Sutras, simply says, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. There are only 2 sentences there. If you look at that entire sutra, there are only 2 words inside that sentence. Yogaha is 1 word, Chitta Vritti Nirodha is another word. Only 2 words. But the definition is very clear. So that is the beauty of it. So they have encoded multiple layers of meaning within a few short words. Of course, in order to take advantage of this style of presentation, they have taken certain liberties in terms of how to present these sentences. So in some places, you will see that the verb is missing inside the sentence. Not some places, in most of the places, the verbs are missing. Only nouns, adjectives, and you will also find certain pronouns. You will also find certain indeclinables. If you don't know what I'm talking about, don't worry about it. I'm only saying that not all types of words are present inside the text. There are only a certain type of words which are present inside the text. And these words cannot be interpreted very easily by a lay person. You need the guidance of an acharya or a guru. And these lessons can also be understood very beautifully, not through translations, but through both practice and also a theoretical study of the commentaries. Of course, I'm not showing it to you on the screen, but I'm saying all these so that you can use this from the recording at a later time. The Yoga Sutras of Maharishi Patanjali have many commentators. So there have been people who have written notes, exhaustive notes to the different sentences inside the text. You will notice that some of the earliest commentaries, that is the notes, were by person by the name of Vyasa. It is not very clear if it is the same Veda Vyasa who gave us the Puranas, the Mahabharata, the Brahma Sutras, and so on. But we know that there was someone by the name of Vyasa who was given it. Everybody is of the Shraddha that it is Veda Vyasa himself. That is Krishna Dvaipayana Veda Vyasa, that same Vyasa. And when you look at the commentary of Vyasa, it is extremely exhaustive, but still there is some clarity that is required, and therefore we see further commentators such as Vachaspati Mishra, Vijnana Bhikshu, Sadashiva Brahmendra Saraswati, and so on. There have been so many commentators who have tried to write exhaustive commentaries in Sanskritam. Because the text itself is in Sanskritam, the commentaries, many of them, or the most popular ones, are also in Sanskritam. It so happens that at some point of time, the language of academia and research, at some point of time in Bharatiya civilization, was unanimously supposed to be Sanskritam. Many of them chose Sanskritam because it was easy to convey everything clearly and in a very short fashion. Whatever they wanted to say, they could convey without any difficulty in a very short form. That is why Sanskritam was considered to be the ideal candidate for academic research language. And you will notice that the same set of lessons which are present in these texts in Sanskritam are also presented in the different local native languages, the indigenous languages of Bharata. You will find the same lessons which are presented in the languages, perhaps in Brajabhasha, maybe it is in Marathi, in Gujarati, in Bangla, it is probably in Tamil, it is probably there in different types of languages. It is just that in Sanskritam, it is becoming accessible to a majority of the researchers. That is the need for Sanskritam there. Otherwise, I am not trying to imply that it is only there in Sanskritam, not in anything else. Arbitrarily speaking, the Indologists of the West have assigned the position of the Yoga Sutras on a historical timeline close to around 2000 years ago. It is not very clear if it is true. The Shraddha is that Patanjali is older than that. It is probably close to the time of the Veda, and the time of the Veda cannot be determined so easily. According to tradition, any tradition which considers the Veda to be an accurate pramana, meaning that which is giving us access to valid knowledge, the Veda cannot be placed in any historical timeline. But still, for the sake of our understanding, for the sake of our everyday practical usage, we are going to assign this historical timeline, and the Yoga Sutras are assigned to approximately 2000 years ago. Of course, there is an entire range of dates, an entire range of centuries which they are giving. It is before Common Era to Common Era, there is some range, some 600 to 800 year time period during which the Yoga Sutras have been given. But still, it does not matter. For the sake of our usage, let us just call it a very ancient text, which is at least 2 millennia old. Now, when you look at the modern psychological understanding, I am not trying to establish that Yoga Sutra is extremely accurate and modern science is not accurate, nor am I trying to establish the opposite. I am only trying to tell you what is there in the Yoga Sutras and how it is relevant for us even today. I am not trying to establish that that alone is correct and modern science is wrong. That is not my opinion. Because I have been in both the traditions, that is the Western scientific tradition as well as the current Indian knowledge system tradition, I can tell you that there are so many complementary and supplementary ideas which can enhance our life much better. And let us now look at the slides. The Yoga Sutras are approximately 2000 years old. And Patanjali is credited to have been the most systematic psychologist. But this is something that we know of. Prior to Patanjali, there have been records of other great scholars. So Patanjali himself is going to be someone who is just placing in front of us whatever has been previously discovered or previously experimented. Only that today we know Patanjali's name more commonly than his predecessors. The Yogasūtras are promising us something very interesting. Many people assume that Yogasūtras is about moksha, it is about samadhi, it is about going to some kind of a yogic state. We should understand that not everyone is interested in attaining that samadhi. For the common man, what is necessary is a clarity with which a person can operate in their everyday life without any disturbance. That is what we all need, right? I don't want to be chaotic the whole day. I want to be clear and do what I'm supposed to be doing without any disturbance. This is our need. That is what the Yogasūtras promise. From the level of the common man to the aspirant of highest nature, all of them are given something which is useful in the Yogasūtras. And the core definition of yoga is given in the second sutra, in the first chapter of the Yogasūtras. So the Yogasūtras have 4 chapters, just 195 to 196 sentences, which are separated into 4 chapters. So you may assume that it is approximately 50 sutras per chapter, something like that. It is not exactly 50, but close to 50. There is one chapter which does not have 50, it is less than 50. So the others have slightly more than 50. Anyway, the first definition for yoga that we see in the Yogasūtras is yogaha chitta vritti nirodhaha. Very straightforward. There are only 2 words. Yogaha chitta vritti nirodhaha. The first word, we know there's something that is called yoga. What is the definition? Chitta vritti nirodhaha, which contains 3 parts. Chitta, vritti and nirodha. Chitta refers to the psyche. You might call it the mind, but it is a better way to call it the psyche. Psyche. This psyche has certain properties. It continuously moves in loops in terms of cycles. It keeps moving in circles. That is why it is called vritti. So if you are looking at the word vritti itself, it is closely connected with the word vritta. Vritta means circle. Literally, the word vritta means circle, and vritti refers to its cyclical movement. And this cyclical movement, which is actually something like a fluctuation, has to be mastered. So generally, if you look at the definition or the translation of the word nirodha or nirodh in Hindi, it comes to cessation. You are stopping everything. But for the sake of clarity, I have given cessation. That is only a superficial translation. In reality, the word nirodha does not necessarily mean cessation. It actually refers to mastery. You are able to master it in such a way that it goes only where you want it to go. It does not go to places where you don't intend it to go. And understanding this chitta and vritti, here it has been written as consciousness. There are mistakes in the slide. Please don't bother about it. Just keep listening to what I'm saying. You can ask questions from what I say. So understanding chitta and understanding the vrittis that it goes through, you will realize that only when there is a nirodha of that, there will be yoga. And then, of course, you have to understand that nirodha does not mean suppression. It actually refers to mastery, that is a skillful management of thoughts. So in the Yogasūtras, there is a reference to consciousness as well. So there is a reference to, Yogasūtras and their commentaries, both. So you will see that there is a word called chiti. Chiti refers to consciousness. Then elsewhere you will find purusha, which refers to consciousness. Elsewhere you will also find chit shakti. So that is also a reference to consciousness. So there are different terms used interchangeably within the Yogasūtras to refer to consciousness. These are to be understood to be slightly different from the concept of consciousness as given in Vedanta. usually we are exposed to the subject of Advaita Vedanta of Adi Shankaracharya, or as propounded by Adi Shankaracharya ji in Advaita. But in reality, Vedanta has multiple sub-branches. One school, one of the most ancient schools, is called Advaita. We also have Vishishta Advaita, Dvaita, Dvaita Advaita, and so on. There are so many sub-schools under the Vedanta tradition. Similarly, in yoga tradition, we have multiple schools. Here, what we are seeing in the context of the Yogasūtras of Maharishi Patanjali comes under the school known as Raja Yoga. It's known as Raja Yoga. We are working directly with the mind, and that is why it is called the Royal Yoga. It is considered to be royal because it is like the royal path. It is like ultimately you have to come here. Like when you have the national highway in your city, which is very important. It is connecting all the important locations inside your city, not necessarily a national highway, but in every city, you will have one highway, which is supposed to be the lifeline of that city or village for that matter. And usually development of the city in terms of road infrastructure starts with that specific road, that specific highway. Only after that, the other highways are developed. Similarly, when you look at the different traditions of yoga, this is the most developed one, in the sense that this is where you will eventually end up. All other types of yoga will eventually lead to this yoga. That is why it is called Raja Yoga. It does not mean it is associated only with kings and queens and not with the common man. And then, what happens when the chitta vrittis are in nirodha? They have been mastered. Then tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthanam. Then the witness consciousness, drashta. Drashta refers to the one who is seeing, the sakshi, the witness. Again, that is a reference to our consciousness, the purusha, or the whatever you call the atma in the Vedantic parlance. That witness consciousness is again established in the true nature, swarupe avasthanam. It is established in its true nature. What happens when the mind becomes still? Then automatically you will realize the difference between the observer and the observed. I use my sense organs as the bridge between the observer, which is deep inside me as the sakshi, and whatever is observed in front of me, that is the material universe in front of me. Please don't assume that I have attained some self-realization and I have done some renunciation officially, and therefore I'm speaking as if I'm an elevated person. No, it's not like that. I'm also just like you. It's just that I'm studying this officially. That's all. The goal is to understand that these are all practices which are going to take us to a state of clarity. And as you keep studying and practicing traditionally, you will realize that it starts happening and you will become more and more productive or more and more efficient in doing whatever you are supposed to be doing. So that is what is also being pointed at when somebody says tada drashtuhu swarupe avasthan. Swarupa is not only about going inwards and staying with the Purusha, its original identity, which I will not elaborate upon because it can be a little deep and heavy. What we must understand that all of us has a specific swabhava, the way we are going to express things or what we are on the inside. So what happens is when the chatter of the mind has been reduced, when the mind starts becoming more and more in control of ourselves, what happens is we start functioning from our true swabhava. An artist need not try to act as if they are a policeman. A doctor need not, whoever has the potential to be a medical doctor need not act as if they have to be a mathematician for the society. We start getting established in our true sense of being. True sense of being is what I'm referring to as swabhava. And then from swabhava, you go deeper and deeper, you will realize what your true essence is. That is for advanced practitioners. But for people like you and me, or perhaps at least for me, you probably already have an elevated consciousness. I am someone who has a very low sense of being. Therefore, for me, I need this in order to be well established in my swabhava. Of course, the text is saying Swarupa, that is meant for the advanced practitioner or the advanced seeker. But for the common seeker, for the common man, what I am referring to is Swabhava. And then what happens is, if you do not do it, if you do not engage in the mastery over the chitta or the chitta vrittis, then vritti sarupyam itaratra. Then what happens is, the mind or the psyche starts making us believe that we are something other than our own swarupa or our own swabhava. We assume that we are our mental states. We think that we are angry. In reality, we are not angry. We had certain expectations, they did not fulfill outside. Therefore, we are actually a little sad and we are expressing that frustration in the form of anger. That is actually a manifestation of helplessness. And that what is happening is, we assume that I am that person, I am an angry person. In reality, anger is different, who you are is different. I am assuming that I am this body. I am not this body. I am also something else which is deeply inside. I am my work. I am the boss in my office. Everywhere I cannot try to pretend that I'm the boss, right? If you are the boss at work, obviously you are going to be not the boss at home because your wife is the boss there. I don't know how true this is for everyone, but I'm just making an observation that is very generic in nature. Anyway, in this way, we realize that we start assuming that we are something other than our true essence. We are no longer trying to establish in what our true essence is, what our true being is. We identify with things outside and we are carried away by our mental states. And this is where we need to understand that mental health keeps focusing on not to get carried away by this wrongful identification, misidentification with what we are not. This identification is necessary. You have to break that misidentification, and that is necessary for proper mental health. Then they give the next sutra. Patanjali says, Vrittayaha panchatayyaha klishta klishtaha. Now they are coming to explain what are these vrittis, what are these different types of circularities or mental modifications which we are experiencing. They can be klishta and aklishta. They are of 5 types. Panchatayyaha meaning they are 5-fold in nature. Klishta and aklishta. Some of them are difficult, some of them are not difficult. Meaning some of them are problematic, some of them are not problematic. What is this? Generally, I thought that thoughts are only in terms of emotions or some kind of intellectual ruminations. And here we are trying to be introduced to a new concept that there are 5 different types of thoughts. Of course, if you have studied some basics in Buddhism, probably you already know these ideas in a different way. You probably know these terms in a different way. In Yoga Shastra, at least in the Raja Yoga Shastra that we are currently seeing, in the Sutras of Maharishi Patanjali, he says there are 5 types of these types of mental states. What are they? He says vrittis, right? So it has been represented in the form of a circle. Pramana, Viparyaya, Vikalpa, Nidra, Smritayaha. These are the 5 chitta vrittis. They keep shifting. They keep going on and on in circles. Not necessarily in this same order, but all of them will keep following each other. So let us see what each of them is. First one is Pramana. Pramana refers to any source of valid knowledge. So how do I know that the apple is in front of me? I know that because I am able to see it. How do I know that the cup in front of me has hot liquid inside? I'm touching it, so I know. How do I know that there is something in front of me? I use my sense organs to know something is there. So directly I am able to sense it. So when I taste something, I know it is sweet because I can sense it with my tongue. So it is straight, directly I am knowing. So this is a valid, the first one, that is direct perception under pramana. This direct perception, means of direct perception is called pratyaksha. Pratyaksha meaning in front of me, I am able to do it with my indriyas, my sense organs. Second one is called inference, that is anumana. You probably have heard of this word anuman. This is different from Hanuman, that is from Ramayana. This is a different thing. That's a different concept altogether. Anumana refers to inference, where we are trying to understand something by a proper calculative guess, based, not guess also, you are thinking, you are arriving upon some idea using certain information you've already received from elsewhere. Say, for example, when I go to a shop, I don't know the name of the shop. It's a cafe, it's a restaurant. The moment I go into the restaurant, I'm able to smell something very delicious. I can smell uh, the cheese, melted cheese. So immediately I know that there is pizza in this restaurant or this cafeteria. How do I know that there is pizza? I know this because every single time in my past, in my entire recorded past, whenever I have pizza in front of me, I have been smelling this. I can smell this cheese exactly whenever I have pizza. And I'm able to taste the same pizza. It has a similar flavor. So whenever there is pizza, there is going to be this smell. Today, when I enter the restaurant, I'm smelling the pizza's cheese. Therefore, this is the same smell that I smelled when I had pizza in the past. Therefore, there is pizza available in this restaurant. So this is called inference or anumana. I already have complete information in my database. Some incomplete information comes to me. I am going to use the rules of induction to say that there is this thing which is also connected with this at all times. Therefore, I know that there is pizza here. So there is this concept of induction. All of this will come under a different shastra known as Nyaya Shastra, which is also known as Pramana Shastra. That is developed very beautifully by the Shastra Parampara. Let us not go there fully. The last one is called Agama here. Agama or Agam in Hindi, that's how you say. Agama is reference to verbal testimony. Verbal testimony or testimony in general. That is how it is translated to in English. Here, Shabda or Agama refers to some information which I have received from a trustable person, a trustable source. Apta Vakyam Shabdaha. This is how they say it. So when somebody who I believe in or somebody who I trust in says something, I know that they are telling that with the intention of some goodwill towards me. Therefore, we see that this is Shabda, which is called Agama in this slide. These are the three pramanas. So in this slide, I am only talking about pramanas. I have not elaborated upon Pratyaksha, Anumana and Agama in big slides. I've just shown you the basic ideas. To study more about this, you have to go towards the text and study the commentaries and practice it. It is a lifelong journey. You can take the basics from textbooks and dictionaries, but it is a lifelong journey. We must understand that pramana is very important for us to ground ourselves in reality, to understand where we are, to understand what we are doing. We need all this information. We need sources of valid knowledge. We keep thinking about this to understand our world much better. The second one is called viparyaya. This is called misperception or wrong knowledge. Viparyayo mithya jnanam atadrupa pratishtham. You are assuming or maybe you are perceiving something in its absence. So generally, when, for example, I am looking at some object and I am assuming that it is a different object just because it has certain properties which are not associated with it in full. Say, for example, you probably have some what you call experience in looking at the example of very bad lighting conditions where somebody looks at a rope and thinks that it is a snake. So this is viparyaya, but in reality, it is not only restricted to that example. There are so many other things which we consider as viparyaya. There are certain ideas which we cling on to, which we think our identity is. These are all also classified under viparyaya, that is false knowledge, mithya jnanam, atadrupa pratishtham. We see something where it is not supposed to be present. That is called atadrupa pratishtham. In other shastras, you will see the definition given slightly differently. Atasmin tad buddhi, they might say, or they might simply say ayathartha jnana. This is what they might say. This pramana that we saw, that is yathartha jnana. Here this is ayathartha jnana. So there are different ways to classify all of this. Let us go deeper, you will understand how it goes. These kinds of wrong perceptions, they are called cognitive distortions. They are definitely going to cause suffering. And this is where we need to understand that we engage in this kind of a behavior very regularly. We assume certain things, we project certain things. In psychology, you will see all of these cognitive biases which are given. So if you search for the term cognitive bias, you will see that there is a huge list of cognitive biases which we experience very regularly. We not experience, but we engage in regularly, not just experience. It's not that we are unconsciously experiencing them, we are consciously creating them as well. All of these kinds of cognitive biases are going to create suffering of some kind. Assumptions and projections are also associated with cognitive biases. So if you want to know more about cognitive biases, please look at the list which is presented in Google or Wikipedia. It keeps growing very regularly. Psychological research keeps coming up with newer and newer ways in which we are causing suffering to ourselves. Okay. The next one is called vikalpa. First we saw pramana, then viparyaya, then vikalpa. Shabdajnananupati vastushunyo vikalpaha. We create mental constructs using words, and in reality that does not exist. So creating castles in the air, basically all that, or thinking about certain things, it is all in the imaginative faculty, but in reality it is not there. So this can also cause a lot of problems. So you probably are aware of the fact that Bollywood movies create an unrealistic standard for everything. So how should love be? It should be like how this person is loving this girl. It should be how this girl is giving some gift to this guy. It's not, in reality, it's not like that. Most of us, when we see how our parents love each other, we know how they express their loves in a very subtle way. It's just by holding each other's hands, standing at the seashore, just looking at the waves. That's all. They don't need to create some elaborate what you call arrangement where they're trying to express love to each other. They don't go on a parachute, paragliding, and show some rocket which is showing I love you and all that. So we don't really do that, right? But in reality, love is far more subtly expressed by people. So this imagination, this vikalpa that is being given to us by Bollywood movies is destroying the marital lives of so many people today. So many high expectations, benchmarks which are never going to be reached in one lifetime. All of these are associated with suffering. So this creativity which you see on the screen is only meant to have some kind of soothing balm for the daily sufferings of the common man. They are only escapism routes, only for a temporary sense of pleasure. That's all. In reality, they do not exist. This is what we need to understand. So this vikalpa is one of the major causes for suffering in our everyday life. Then we see the fourth one, which is called nidra. Nidra is being defined by Maharshi Patanjali as abhava pratyaya lambana tamo vrittir nidra or vrittir nidra. There are two different types of definitions. One definition includes the word tamas inside it. Another definition does not include it. I generally prefer the definition with tamas inside it. It comes as abhava pratyaya lambana tamo vrittir nidra. So abhava means absence. Pratyaya refers to a thought. Alambana meaning you are holding on to something which is absent. The thought about absence or an absent thought. So it is like you are closing your fist, you have nothing inside, but still you have something inside your fist, and that is that emptiness. So when you are asleep, you are holding on to some kind of an empty thought. So that is what is abhava pratyayalambana. Tamo vrittihi means it is all influenced by tamas. You have the three gunas, right? You probably have heard about these three gunas. In Bhagavad Gita, as Krishna says, there are three gunas, sattva, rajas and tamas. And tamas is something to do with darkness and ignorance. You might be thinking, so because it is associated with tamas, we do not have to sleep. No, it's not like that. Everything has to be balanced. And one of the different definitions of yoga given in the Bhagavad Gita is also given by Nidhi before the presentation began. She said, Yogaha karmasu kaushalam. There is another definition in the Yogasūtra, in the Bhagavad Gita. It says, samatvam yoga uchyate. Balance is also called yoga. So if you think that I should not sleep because there is tamas inside it, no, tamas is also necessary. It is important for arogya. Swasthya requires tamas to an extent. That balance, that samatva is what is definitely required. Anyway, the mind's relationship to absence and unconsciousness, as I have shown here, there is something to do with absence. It's very beautiful. When you are totally in deep sleep, only then you are able to experience a sense of what you call pleasure when you wake up. You wake up in the morning and say, I slept very nicely. How do you know that you slept very nicely? Because part of your consciousness awareness is still there. And that is what is experiencing this abhava pratyaya. It is what is doing the alambana. It is grasping onto the abhava pratyaya. That is what is there. And that is called nidra. And of course, if you go to the Vedantic tradition, you see the different states of awareness. There we see Jagarana or Jagrit, Swapna, Sushutti, and Turiya. These are all mentioned in the Mandukya Upanishad. If you are interested in the Vedic tradition, you have to go see how they are talking about these. But in psychology, all of these are reduced to the different wave forms, alpha, beta, gamma, and the delta waves. If you study EEG, electroencephalograms, you will see all of these are mentioned there. I will not go deep into it because many of you may be interested in it or you've already studied. Please check it outside of this presentation. It is beyond the scope of the current presentation. Then we have the last type of vritti, which is called smriti. It is associated with memory. Anubhuta vishaya asampramoshaha smriti. Whatever has been experienced in the past, dwelling on those ideas or dwelling on those experiences is called smriti. So this is also something that is going to cause suffering to us. People who have heartbreaks already know that this is already causing enough suffering in my life. Everything reminds me of her or him. And people who have experienced some kind of death in the family, some person who we love has passed away. Obviously, we have that memory resurfacing every now and then, and we feel that, oh no, everything is gone. And we start crying. We try to hug our people or do things which make us feel a little better. The only way to not be affected by it is to live in the present. You already know that. I don't need to tell you. I don't need to show a presentation for that. As I've already told you, when you live in the present, that is when you are playing football, you are in the game, you are the game. You have nothing else disturbing you. As simple as that. When you are in the stitching, if you are somebody who is fond of stitching, if you are there as the process of stitching itself, when your mind dissolves, your attention is fully there, time dissolves, the passage of time is no longer affecting you. That is what is living in the present moment. When you are living in the present moment, none of these, especially memories, they will not affect us. It is not just negative memories or sad memories or these memories associated with suffering, which again cause suffering. It is also memories of pleasure which will cause suffering. You might be thinking, how is that even possible? Let me give you a very straight example. When I go to a new hotel to stay, I go into the room and see that there are certain facilities which are not given, but I have expected them because I have already experienced it in another hotel a few days ago. So I go to Hotel Rama and I see that there are certain facilities which are given. I was so happy with the facilities that when I go to Hotel Krishna a few days later, I expect the same facilities and they are not giving it to me. So that is giving me suffering, right? So even memories of pleasure can give us suffering in the present. So that is how it is all interlooped. It is all interconnected so weirdly that it is so difficult to come out of all of this. And yoga gives us the lessons on how to disidentify, how to disconnect from all of this. For the want of time, I will not be doing a lot of these. I'll just give you an idea and move forward. The best way to move out of this kind of disturbance caused by these 5 vrittis, according to Patanjali Maharshi, is by 2 things. Abhyasa vairagyabhyam tannirodha. The chitta vritti nirodha is there, right? That is what is indicated here. That is possible by 2 things. Abhyasa and vairagya. You know Abhyasa and vairagya because they are Hindi words, they are universal Indic words. Abhyasa refers to the practice of something. Vairagya generally is associated with detachment. Detachment does not mean you are totally unconcerned from something. You are no longer responsible for things. See, as I told you earlier, this is not only meant for a very intense seeker, it is also meant for a layperson. So when a layperson is talking about detachment, or when a layperson wants to engage in detachment, it does not mean that they have to renounce the house responsibilities or responsibilities at work. Here, detachment means you are going to practice karma yoga, where you are doing your activities without being bothered by the results of the action so much emotionally. That's what I mean. You keep doing it, you do what is necessary. If the results come, okay. If it is as expected as in the beginning, fine. If it is not as expected, then also it is fine. So that is the level which is being called as detachment. Detachment does not mean, okay, I'll be irresponsible henceforth. That is what is detachment. I will leave the house and go. I will not dress properly. I will not work 9 to 5. I will just go sign and come back by 11 a.m. That's not what it means. I'm not asking you to be government babus of ancient times. A few decades ago, government babus were having in different parts of the country, they were living life where there is zero responsibility, zero accountability, just because there was a lot of corruption. I'm not saying that people are like that now. Things are changing. Desh बढ़ रहा है, so we have to also consider that part of life. So we should understand that detachment, this vairagya, is not connected with looking at life very casually, not getting connected with it. Okay, I think Nidhi may, oh, somebody has raised their hands. I'll just finish soon. In another 7 to 8 minutes, I will finish. Then the floor will be open for questions. So,
For Abhinav. Yeah.
Yes. So both Abhyasa and Vairagya, both are equally necessary. Abhyasa is again defined by Maharshi Patanjali. He says, Tatra sthitau yatno bhyasaha. Of course, there are some mistakes in the slide. I must apologize. And the next sutra, he says, Satu dirghakala nairantarya satkara adara asevito dridha bhumihi. Adara is sometimes there in certain variants of the Yogasūtra. In certain variants, adara is not included. Tatra sthitau yatno bhyasaha. You have to be there, that is, in that difficult space, whatever you are experiencing, and you have to have continuous practice. Yatnaha means attempt. Your effort is necessary. Yatna is the same word as prayatna. Yatna, prayatna, they have similar roots. So this is associated with that effort. And how should that effort be? Dirghakala, for a long time. Nairantarya, it should be consistent. Satkara, meaning there some kind of respect is also necessary. That only then you will attain dridha bhumihi. Only then there will be some steadiness that you can experience. These qualities that we have just now seen, that duration, continuity, and then adara is devotion, that bhakti that you should have, the respect that you should have. All of these will lead to that strength, that dridha bhumi, dridhata, which you call that strength and stability that keeps coming only through practice. And then, what is this vairagya then? Vairagya is defined here as Drishtanushravika Vishaya Vitrishnasya Vashikara Sanya Vairagyam. Simply put, as I've already told you, it is karma yoga, non-attachment to the outcomes and experiences. It is just that we have to focus on our activity during the activity. If you keep focusing on the result, if it is a result-oriented approach or a product-oriented approach where you are forgetting about the process itself, then you will realize that it is going to cause a lot of suffering. And this is what modern day management gurus are also saying. Product-based approach, process-based approach, or product-based thinking and process-based thinking. All this is already there in Karma Yoga. Bhagavad Gita gave it to us 5,000 years ago, and the Yogasūtras gave it more than 2,000 years ago. The issue is that we ourselves do not know all these things that our ancestors have given, and somebody has translated them after learning from us, and we immediately grab onto that and say, oh my God, what a great principle, what a great philosophy. All of this is because of intellectual colonization. Of course, all the other speakers and the organizers have spoken to you about it. Hopefully, you will also understand. So again, as I've told you, detachment should not be confused with indifference. Both are different. Here, I will not continue because there are so many things I wanted to share. I will just give you a brief conclusion. There are so many obstacles that will come in yoga, as mentioned by Maharishi Patanjali. There are other great scholars and great thinkers who have also elaborated on this idea that there are so many obstacles. We will not touch upon the obstacles for the want of time. But what I can tell you is the journey will continue. It is a lifelong process, as I have already mentioned at the beginning of the presentation. Here, what we have seen is only grazing the surface. You are only looking at the tip of the entire Shastra. This is only the opening of the Shastra. I've only showed you some of the opening sutras of the Yogasūtras. There are so many sutras, there are so many commentaries given to these sutras which clarify these ideas to such an extent that you can devote entire lifetimes just to study what these scholars have given, what the commentators have told. With that, I can only tell you that the journey continues. I thank you for patiently listening to this entire presentation. I'm sure it was a little boring because of my South Indian accent. I hope you were able to understand at least a little bit. And the picture that you see on the screen is something like the picture, photograph of a painting of the Krishna Murti at the Parthasarathi Swami temple in Chennai, where I live around the temple, so I always show our Krishna here. The one in the center is Krishna. The one to our left is Rukmini, and this is this entire Parivara who give us darshan at this temple. I close my presentation seeking his Ashirwad. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Abhinav ji. It was an excellent presentation, taking us rightfully from a little bit of chaos that we may have experienced at the beginning of the session to, I'm sure, much more clarity that all our participants now have about Patanjali's Yoga Sutra, about the rich historical, traditional, civilizational legacy that yoga has to offer to us. And definitely your South Indian accent was never a problem. I think Bharatiyata rests well in the diversity of languages that we have. We are so lucky to be able to converse, understand, assimilate all these different languages, and probably at some point of time there may be some hiccups in understanding, but I think as Bharatiyas we are multilingual and all these language barriers never are important. This is what Bharat is all about. I just remember one example a few years ago, almost 9 years ago, I was in Surat doing a project with the Municipal Corporation of Surat. We had got artists from America and they had to interact with indigenous Vanavasi artists from central Gujarat. And I as I was also very colonized at that point of time, assumed that I'll have to play the role of a translator between the American artists who could only speak in English and the Vanavasi artists from central Gujarat who could speak Rathwi or Gujarati at best. And on the very first day, this misconception was challenged because both set of artists, despite not knowing each other's language, were comfortably interacting with each other. I was not even needed on the scene because art, creativity, and intellect is a universal language. So with this, we are now moving to the Q&A session. And I think Neha ji had raised her hand. Neha ji, if you are still around, please unmute yourself. I cannot see your hand raised now. So I'm not sure if it was for a question or if it was by mistake. I'll take the question by Geeta Sri ji. She's asking, what you see, that is pratyaksha, as the source of valid knowledge may not always be true or is not always true, then why are we calling it pramana? Why are we referring to it as valid source of knowledge in the first place? Sometimes what we may see may not be true.
So you should understand that the sentence there was source of valid knowledge. So when I say source of valid knowledge, what I receive as the knowledge is valid. You are again asking me, what if it is going to give me invalid knowledge? Then it is not pramana. Then it is viparyaya. So it is all about where you classify. If it is going to give me false knowledge, I will classify under viparyaya. If it is going to give me correct knowledge, I will put it under pramana. Simple.
Okay, I hope Geeta Sri ji that addresses your query. Does it? Yeah, great. Thank you. Thank you. In fact, in all the darshan shastras, Nyaya, Vaisheshik, Sankhya, Yoga, Mimamsa, Vedanta, these aspects of knowledge, pramana, inference, verbal testimony, I think Mimamsa even goes a little further, and the interpretation of Mimamsa by Bhatta Mimamsa, and one more scholar, I am sorry, I may not get the name correctly, they even go further and talk about 5 or 6 sources of knowledge. So big darshan, if you observe, starting with 3 sources of knowledge, go to 4 and then 5 and 6. So I think in that sense, because yoga is also a darshan shastra, exploring it from that perspective will also be one step ahead. Okay, I invite Anupama ji to ask her question.
Hello, namaste everyone. Thank you for this opportunity. Sir, thank you so much for giving us, wide knowledge on what karma actually is. And I was really happy to understand that we should not stick on to something and the right meaning of detachment. Thank you so much for that. And my question was about that only, that when we say we are not going to get ourselves attached towards the output or the result, sometimes, when we keep that and moving on, we feel the lack of motivation, maybe due to physical exhaustion, mental exhaustion, or maybe emotional exhaustion, or we are human beings, so we'll definitely come through all of that. So how do we keep ourselves motivated? And practicing karma yoga needs something to hold on, that you can push yourself, or yeah, if exactly not push yourself, at least enjoy the process. What is Indian knowledge says about it? How do you motivate yourself again? Or when there is, I know I'm going long on the question, but when there are, holdbacks, setbacks, or anything like that, how do we really address that?
So the first thing that I have told you about this is focus on the activity during the activity. I did not say that don't think about the results. Think about it. You will know that when you are planning. So when you are planning for some activity or some result, you know what you have to do to get what kind of result, or at least what kind of result you can expect from what kind of activity. But only thing I told you, please listen to the recording once again. I told you to focus on the activity during the activity. You may be a little tired or bored or restless when you are planning. But once you get into the activity, nothing else matters. You are only focused on the activity. This will happen only when you are functioning from your swabhava. When you are not functioning from your swabhava, it will always be a problem. We are unable to act properly. So, frankly speaking, when I wanted to study Sanskritam, Indian knowledge systems, or Darshana Shastra for that matter, in the initial stages, I had the difficulty of language. And in another space, I had the difficulty of finding the source for this wisdom from a living person. So books are always available in English or Hindi or local languages, but I needed a living person who could help me, who could guide me. So I needed a guru or an acharya for the subject. So in the initial stages, it was very difficult for me to get to that space. But once I realized that I had to shed certain ideas, I had to shed the identity associated, or rather identity dissociated with that traditional knowledge, only then I was able to go deeper into it. So first I was thinking, what will this person think of me? What will this person do when I approach that person and ask him for teaching me, him or her for that matter? But the moment I started functioning from my swabhava, so I spoke from the heart, I was functioning there. So I was no longer bothered about what the other people would think. Log kya kahenge? I was not thinking about that. I straight went, asked them, I need this, can you help me? So they said, yes, I can. Or if they cannot help, they would say no. I would say namaste, thank you, and leave. And usually they would also say, I cannot help you, but I know someone else who can. So in this way, when we are engaging in an activity fully from our swabhava, what happens is automatically doors will open up and there is no need for you to fear. Of course, all of that is associated with also the concept of sharanagati and complete surrender and all that. Then it will become satsang. I'm only giving you shastra jnana. I'm not trying to some satsang guru of any kind. At least that's not the intention there.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Anupama ji, for that question, and thank you, Abhinav ji, for that pointed response. There is a comment by Parameshwar sir. He is from Karnataka, and he's saying in Kannada, there is a proverb that is familiar: Pratyaksha Kandaru Pramanisi Nodu.
So whatever it is, I think that's what it means. Like, you have to find the correct source. You need to find a source of valid knowledge before coming to a conclusion. Perhaps that's what he means.
Yes, yes. And of course, I was talking about Mimamsa Darshan, which refers to 6 sources of knowledge. And thank you, Dr. Surbala Verma-ji, for pointing out to Prabhakar Mishra and Kumaril Bhatta, who are scholars of this Darshan, Shastra, Mimamsa tradition. And I think there are some similarities in their opinions about these 6 sources of knowledge and slight bit of differences. And just to elucidate what Abhinav ji talked about in the course of his presentation, that Patanjali's Yogasūtras are probably the most popular and most known form of knowledge emanating from the Yoga Shastra. In this book that I was referring to when we just began the session, a book by Professor Subhash Kak, on page 110, he says, there are many descriptions of Mahabharata, which is by to Patanjali. Patanjali से भी पहले जो अकाउंट्स हैं योग के, वो महाभारत में हमें मिलते हैं. In it, sage Vashishta speaks of yoga as ekagrata, one-pointed concentration. Bhishma instructs Yudhishthir in 4 stages of Dhyana Yoga. The Bhagavad Gita elucidates 4 ways. Karma Yoga, that is the path of action. Jnana Yoga, the path of knowledge. Bhakti Yoga, the path of devotion. And Dhyana Yoga, the path of meditation. And he adds that the Katha and the Svetara Upanishads also speak of yoga. There is reference to yoga in the Maitri Upanishad also. So I think that probably Abhinavji, this elucidates and supports what you were trying to say, that what Maharshi Patanjali presented, like what is the characteristic of Indian knowledge system. All the scholars of Indian knowledge system, like Kautilya, when he presented the Arthashastra, he didn't say that this is something that I am creating newly, or this is my own creation. I am accumulating, I am consolidating the knowledge of all the rishis, munis, scholars of the past, what they presented, and I'm just compiling it in the Arthashastra. I have also added my own ideas about policy, governance, political economy, administration, etc. And I think that is an important characteristic of IKS. That is why we refer to IKS as a tradition, because there is continuity in the knowledge system, not gaps and breaks. Each scholar is taking forward what the precedent scholar has done. And today in modern research methodology, we call it literature review, right? So, yeah, yes, I just check if there are. Yes, Chandra Mohanji, you have raised your hand. Please go ahead.
Pranams, sir. Pranams, sir. Pranams, Nidhi Madam and Abhinav Kadambi ji. Thank you very much for very great session, sir. You have touched the core of actually Yoga Shastra, though you have given eagle's eye view, sir. My humble submission, sir. Humble submission means, sir, I don't ask any questions, of course. Humble submission is just actually by observing present day, all these lifestyles, whatnot, everything. And people want to strike a balance between these type of the things and along with other enjoyments, whatnot, everything. I think it is creating more problems. Because this way of life is different and the mindset is different. As you said, sir, it's a wonderful thing you have said. Yoga Shastra is actually meant for changing the mind, and with that thoughtfulness and mindfulness, we are the monitors of our actions, whatnot, everything, so that we will become a good citizens and automatically society, whatnot, country, everything is actually. That is I think in my small knowledge, of course, because I won't practice yoga or something, but being a teacher, of course, I have ideas about Yoga Shastra, sir. And thank you very much. And you have said that Raja Yoga, there's one thing, sir. And only one question, sir. That is actually according as I heard. And Swami Vivekananda, who was supposed to be not directly, indirectly Guru of Sri Aurobindo Maharshi, who has taken Indian Yoga Shastra to the highest levels also, and who has his own place in what I say Yoga Shastra. After actually, because Yoga Parampara is different, of course, and there are some mythological characters also will be there. And Aurobindo's integral yoga is also just a part of Raj Yoga, or even some other mixtures are there in itself. That's what just only an idea I want to know from you, sir.
Yes.
Thank you, Chandra Mohanji. I request Abhinavji to respond because we have one more question, after which
Yes.
I want to invite my colleague Dr. Vikas to offer
Yes.
his comments.
This is a very pertinent question when it comes to understanding the difference between what Shri Aurobindo has spoken about in his integral yoga and what traditionally we understand about yoga. Firstly, if you would like to know the yoga of Shri Aurobindo, you have to, if you want to study intellectually, academically, you should study the Synthesis of Yoga, which he has given. It's a beautiful book. It is not meant for everyone, unfortunately. It's only meant
Yes, sir.
for serious scholars. And people
Yes, sir.
who are in the tradition, many people who are in the tradition of Shri Aurobindo and the mother themselves don't study it. Even if they studied it, many of them don't understand it because
Yes,
Shri
sir.
Aurobindo speaks or writes from a very heightened state of consciousness. It's not meant
Yes,
for
sir.
everyone. So if you want to know simply if this is that, is it very similar to each other? Are they both similar? Sri Aurobindo, in his letters to his disciples, he mentions that they are not similar. There are 3 or 4 of these small collected volumes, very small volumes, like 80 to 90 pages large. So
Yes,
these books are available at the press of the ashram. You can purchase them.
Yes,
They
sir.
talk about, or they present what Sri Aurobindo has written in response to the questions of his disciples on yoga. There
Yes,
he
sir.
mentions that this yoga does not require you to practice asana or pranayama like in Hatha Yoga or Raja Yoga. He mentions that. Not necessarily, he does not mention Hatha Yoga or Raja Yoga. He just says like other yogas. So what he does is very different. That is related to the super mind. So that is
Yes, sir.
different.
Yes, sir.
There is a lot of similarity in terms of the way he is classifying the mental, physical, vital, and then the mind, the mental,
Yes, sir.
physical, vital, super
Yes, sir.
mind, over mind, and so on. He's talking about all that. That
Yes, sir.
is similar to the Vedic organization of our koshas, but he goes beyond the Vedic interpretation. If you want to know more about it, we can
Yes, sir.
connect later off the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Sir,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank you. Thank you so much, Abhinavji, for that quick response.
Wonderful, sir. Sir, one last thing, sir.
Sir,
When we are
there is
thinking
one more,
about,
Chandra Mohanji, I'll just interrupt you. We have a question from Manika Nandanji. We need to take questions from different participants. So I will invite your submission some other time. Manika Nandanji, please go ahead.
Thank you, ma'am. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
you
so
are
much.
audible, Manika Nandanji.
Yeah. I would like to
Manika
thank
Nandanji.
the whole team of Merit actually for arranging such a wonderful session. Abhinav ji, Mahan Santoshah, Mama Santosha Prakadanam, Prashnaha Nasti, Uttama explanation Asit, Mahan Santoshah. Thank you so much.
Dhanyavad.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your appreciation. Thank you. I am now inviting my esteemed colleague, Dr. Vikas Rajpopat, to share his insights.
Namaste everyone. As Dr. Nidhi mentioned in the beginning of the session, that I had the good fortune of meeting Mr. Abhinav during the Shastra Sabha held in Tenali, Andhra Pradesh. From the very beginning, I was struck by his calm and focused demeanor. He remained observant and thoughtful throughout the event, silently immersing himself in the discussions and the presentation. Later, I came to know that Abhinavji is a dedicated PhD scholar in Sanskrit. I was deeply impressed by his scholarly presence, and we approached him with a request to conduct a session for our group. He graciously accepted without the hesitation. The session today, which he delivered, was truly enriching. His depth of knowledge, clarity of thought, and humble approach left a lasting impression on all of us. It was not just a lecture, it was an experience filled with insight and inspiration. Thank you very much, Abhinavji, for generously sharing your time and wisdom with all of us. We look forward to many more such meaningful interactions in the future as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Vikas. And we are very glad that both of you could attend the Shastra Sabha at Tenali. I mean, I'm sure you learned a lot from that experience. And for us here, who now know both of you, at least now I know both of you, I think it's an honor for me to know that two of colleagues that I know have been able to participate in the Shastra Sabha. And I think that was arranged and organized by Indic Academy. And I would encourage all our participants to kindly explore the work that Indica is doing. They are doing wonderful work in the domain of IKS. And they also have Indica courses where they offer long form courses on Indian knowledge system. So feel free to explore that. Unfortunately, because of the limitations of time, I had thought that earlier we would go through some web resources on IKS. We still have 7 more sessions to go. Probably if we have time, we will explore that. I'll invite one last comment from Rupam Dattaji, because we have to move towards the closing of this session. Rupam ji, please go ahead. Rupam ji, are you there with us? You have raised your hand. Okay, maybe it was raised by mistake. Okay, Geeta ji, you can reach out to me on WhatsApp. I am in the group and I will personally share the course details and the web links with you. Geeta ji has also asked about the recording. So in case you've missed any session, you can rely on the recording. Our admin team is working to upload it on our YouTube channel. You already have the link to NLD's YouTube channel on the WhatsApp group. So in case you have missed any session, you can always go back to the recording, no problem with that. But it would be great if participants can attend live sessions and take benefit of this entire experience of being with this group through the course of the lecture. I am now pleased to invite Srimati Manisha Bhushan Madam, Assistant Professor, Sociology, Shahid Mangal Pandey Government Girls PG College, Meerut, to deliver the vote of thanks and formally close this session.
Madam, only one question, madam. SAR's email ID, madam.
Okay, sure. Abhinav ji, if
Yes,
you
don't think, madam. Just if such resource persons, if we have to enrich our knowledge, it must be provided for us.
Yes, Chandramohan ji, we will definitely provide the email ID of the resource persons if we get request. However, we'll just take their consent and their permission.
Yes, madam. With the consent only, madam. Without consent, we don't require, of course. Because any such, and I'm not asking about all scholars. Actually, it's very interesting, and SAR has touched the highest levels. They are very different, of course. That's what.
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. In case
just a moment. Dr. Nidhi, just a moment. Abhinavji's email ID is very much visible to you all, because in the last slide, which is there in front of you, the email ID is there.
Okay.
Yeah. Take a screenshot. Take a screenshot. And in case anybody requires the email address of any specific resource person, feel free to reach out to me. I'll seek their permission and I'll share it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Abhinav, sir.
Thank you. Manisha ma'am, I invite you to deliver the vote of thanks. Is Manisha ma'am with us? I'm not, because I'm not able to see her. Okay. Okay, I don't think Manisha ma'am is with us. Not a problem. So, Vikas, I invite you to deliver the vote of thanks.
Hello.
Oh, sorry, ma'am, you're here?
No, ma'am, actually, I'm not Manisha. I'm Dr. Bharti here.
Oh, Dr. Bharti, most welcome. Please go ahead.
Well, I suppose there must be some technical problem. So she could not be there with us. Actually, very first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Abhinav. Abhinav, I am from the field of physical education and sports and also practices yoga. और certainly मैं आपको एक बात ही कहना चाहती हूँ कि आपने जो explanations दिए वो बहुत ही खूबसूरत, मतलब आप उसे आध्यात्म से पढ़ें, आप उसे यौगिक एक्सप्रेशंस की बात करें, आप अपने वेद और उपनिषद की बात करें, तो मुझे लगता है बहुत ही deep and enriching experience it was. Very, very beautiful, and I must congratulate to you for providing us such beautiful expressions and definitions of things. क्योंकि जैसे अभी इन्होंने हमारे साथ बात की थी योगा चित्तवृत्ति निरोधा की, तो सिंपल अगर हम स्कूल्स और कॉलेजेस की बात करें तो वहां लोग बड़े ही हल्के शब्दों में, या तो आप ये कह सकते हैं लोगों तक पहुंचाने के लिए उस अर्थ को बहुत ही हल्के शब्दों में हम ये बता देते हैं कि चित्त की वृत्तियों को निरोध करना, मतलब रोकना, है ना। लेकिन इन्होंने जो आज बहुत, इट वाज वेरी डीपेस्ट, वेरी ब्यूटीफुल एक्सप्लेनेशन, और जो स्वभाव की आपने बात की, सो आई रियली it's such a heartfelt thanks to you for providing us such a beautiful, concise and clear conceptual presentation. So I really thank from the family of Shahid Mangal Pandey, my college, the IQAC, and the whole team, the organizing committee, including Neha ma'am also. आपकी तरफ से भी आप सभी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। साथ ही मेरे साथ हमारे कॉलेज की जो ऑर्गेनाइजिंग कमेटी की हेड है, हमारी प्रिंसिपल मैम है, उनका भी बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद करती हूँ। हमारी IQAC कोऑर्डिनेटर हमारे साथ जुड़ी हैं प्रोफेसर डॉक्टर लता कुमार जी। आपने निधि मैम के साथ हम लोगों को जोड़कर बहुत ही अच्छा काम किया, और वो कहते हैं ना कि बिल्कुल सरोवर मतलब नहला दिया, ज्ञान की गंगा में डुबो दिया। So it's really very beautiful opportunity to have you all with us. And सबसे अच्छी बात यह है that we are having a great and beautiful audience जो हम लोगों को सुन रही है, और वो हमारे साथ लगातार from the very first minute to the last hour of this session they are with us. So I am really very thankful to them as well. और इसी के साथ मैं अपने पूरे महाविद्यालय की ओर से आप सभी का बहुत बहुत हार्दिक आभार और धन्यवाद करती हूँ। आशा करती हूँ कि इसी तरह हम लोग फिर कल सुबह मिलेंगे, और हमारे कोई भी गलती अगर होती है तो उसे आप माफ कर देंगे। थैंक यू सो मच।